haircut. My hair smells good. And I am happy because I love this length. What's up, guys? My name is Mill. I'm a college student who loves reading, and I'm here to share that love with all of you. Honestly, I was debating even filming a video today because I have so many videos that I've already filmed that are just waiting to be edited and uploaded. It's probably like 6 weeks worth of videos already filmed. I just like planning ahead, but I really wanted to film today, and why not? I'll do what I like, you know? Please do not be distracted by the dot on my face. I know it's there. Looks like I got a beauty mark, and listen, I don't need a beauty mark to make this face beautiful, but she's there today, so say hi to her. Tell her to hurry up her stay on here. She's not really welcome, but hopefully that's not distracting because I've done all that I can to get rid of it, and it's just, I'm aware, okay? I'm aware of it. Anyways, I am trying to get all of my chaotic emotions out right now because the book we are talking about today is quite a serious read. I definitely want to treat this read with respect and treat the content of this book with respect and treat it in a serious manner because it is fiction, but it is realistic fiction, and it talks a lot about a very, very dark topic. Despite it being a dark topic, it was a book that I thought was very well done, and while enjoying reading it was probably not the right word, I am glad to say that I have read it, and it is probably going to be one of my top books for 2023, and I'm saying that pretty early in the year. Before we get into it, make sure to like the video if you like it. Comment down below what your favorite realistic fiction is, your favorite fiction based on a real historical point or a real thing that's happening in our world. And if you like the content I make, consider subscribing. I'm trying to remember to do this at the beginning of videos now, but I'm definitely forgetting. So yeah, I remembered this time. Cool. All right. Without further ado, the book that we are going to be talking about today is called Sold by Patricia McCormick. It is written by a woman who went to India and Nepal to interview many women that were in the trade that was shown in this book. And yeah, it was very well written. So let's read the summary and then I will voice my thoughts. Lakshmi is a 13-year-old girl who lives with her family in a small village in Nepal. Though she is desperately poor, her life is full of simple pleasures, like playing hopscotch with her best friend from school and having her mother brush her hair by the light of an oil lamp. But when the harsh Himalayan monsoons wash away all her family's crops, Lakshmi's stepfather says she must take a job to support her family. He introduces her to a glamorous stranger who tells her where she will find her job as a maid in the city. Glad to help, Lakshmi journeys to India only to learn the unthinkable truth. She has been sold into sex work. An old woman named Mumtaz rules the brothel with cruelty and cunning. She tells Lakshmi that she is trapped there until she can pay off her family's debts, then cheats Lakshmi of her meager earnings so that she can never leave. Gradually, Lakshmi forms friendships that enable her to survive in this terrifying new world. Then the day comes when she must make a decision. Will she risk everything for a chance to reclaim her life? So yes, as I said, this is a very serious topic. It is based off of the real accounts of women who were taken from their families and sold into sex work, and it is not a subject to be taken lightly. But while I don't have too much to comment on the actual content that reflects real life in this book, I will talk about the way the book was written and the quality of it, that kind of thing, because I am not qualified to talk about that. but it did give me a small bit of insight to the cruel realities that are happening throughout our world, and I am glad that I read it. First off, I'll talk about Lakshmi. I hope I'm saying her name right. She, like the summary said, she's a 13-year-old girl who gets sold, and it was just so depressing because she was such a sweet girl throughout the entire book. She's a little kid, she's a child, and on top of being a child, she lived in a village in poverty where they have no knowledge of the outside world. This is 2006, and yet she only knows this little village. She doesn't know anything of any sort of modern technological advancements. It's like she's living 200 or 300 years in the past, and that's not inherently a bad thing, of course. It's just how some people live. People to this day still live like that in the world. However, she is in extreme poverty and she barely gets to eat. She talked about how she tightened her waistband around her waist as tight as she could so that she could feel full for longer to trick her stomach. From the beginning of the book until the end, it was an extremely depressing, heartbreaking life that this girl had to live, and yet she didn't know anything else, so she was content. After she willingly says that she will take up a job to get money for her family, she goes on this long journey that confuses her because she has no idea where she's going. She doesn't get told what she's doing. Even when she gets to the brothel, she has no idea what her job is until a man comes into the room. And the way that it was written, her job, it was done in a way that was of utmost respect for the woman that this was based on. It wasn't overly explicit. It was done in a very mature, very respectful way, as respectful as it could be for such a terrible thing that happened to this child. But it was really hard to read through that and know that a child had to deal with that, and that it was her job, and that there was this group of people around her that did nothing because that was what was expected of her by these people. Even though she probably spends about a year in this brothel, it's not talked about much, the job she's doing, rather what she does in her spare time around it, because obviously it's not something that she would want to talk about, and after a while it becomes normal and she becomes numb to it all, which is one of the hardest things to read about. It talks about how she learns what TV is and movie stars. It shows the friends that she makes in the brothel, including the son of one of the other concubines. I really did like reading those parts. I mean, for all that happened to her, she was still a kid. She still had wonder like a child. She got to learn how to read with a storybook on Sesame Street, and it's just innocent things like that that are intertwined with this terrible thing that's happening to her that makes it that much more heartbreaking. You never forget that this is a little girl that's going through all of this. It's written in first person, so it's as if Lakshmi is speaking to you, to the reader, and it makes it that much more personal. It puts you that much more in the story, and it was pretty upsetting. I think books like this are very important, even more so biographies of people, but researchers who interview the woman in this situation, they're important too, of course. I think that it's important to empathize with people going through this, because if you treat it as a distant issue, it's not as easy to take action. But if you understand what's going on from such a personal point of view, it gets you upset, it gets you angry, it makes you want to better this world. And I think that's the most important reason for stories like this, beyond just the telling of someone else's story. This world could use a lot more empathy. This world could use a lot more listening ears. And as we know, the world is very divided today. We're more connected than we've ever been, and yet we're still so divided. There are evils all around this world, and it is our job as a global community to make the world a better place for those who live in it, and that means everyone. There are very selfish people in this world. They're selfish, greedy, evil. It's all just... It's a dark place living in this world. And sometimes it's really hard to be hopeful. And yet, at the end of this book, there was still a bit of hope. I'll tell you, this book did not have a happy ending, not one inherently, but there is hope. The book ends with hope. We don't know what happens to her at the end of the day. We don't know where she goes beyond this brothel, but we can hope that something better happens to her. I'm not going to spoil the ending because I think this is worth a read for anybody, but it is hopeful. The reader has hope. Lakshmi has hope, and that is the start of things getting better. This book was formatted pretty well. I think it was done in a way where, well, she'd have a lot of things to talk about on this one day, so she'd talk about that, but she'd only have a sentence or two to say on another day, so there would only be one sentence on a page at some points. And I think that was really well done. It made it more convincing that you were hearing about the experience of a real girl, and I thought that was really well done. I think it was a really good choice that the writer made to format it in the way that it was. It was a lot like The One and Only Ivan, if you've ever read that book. That book was very, very integral in my childhood. I've read it so many times. I had it read to me so many times. When I did something called Global Reading Challenge in my school, which is where you read books and then answer very, very specific questions in teams. That was one of the books I read, so it reminded me a lot of that in the way that it was formatted. Only a couple sentences one time and then 6 pages another. I just really liked that choice. At the end of the book, there is an author's note, and I think that it is extremely important, so I'm going to read it for this video. It says, each year, nearly 12,000 Nepali girls are sold by their families, intentionally or unwittingly, into a life of sexual slavery in the brothels of India. Worldwide, the U.S. State Department estimates that nearly 500,000 children are trafficked into the sex trade annually. As part of my research for Sold, I traced the path that many Nepalese girls have taken from remote villages to red light districts of Kolkata. I also interviewed aid workers who rescue girls from brothels, provide them with medical care and job training, and who work to reintegrate them into society. But the most touching and inspiring was interviewing survivors themselves. These young women have experienced what many people would describe as unspeakable horrors, but they are speaking out with great dignity. Some go door to door in the country's most isolated villages to explain what really happens to girls who leave home with strangers promising good jobs. Some of them, even women who are ill with HIV, patrol the border between Nepal and India on the lookout for young girls traveling without their parents. And some are facing their traffickers in court, where it is often their word against the fathers and brothers, husbands and uncles who sold them for as little as $300. It is in their honor that this book was written. I think that was the most important part of the book. It wasn't part of the narrative, but it was so important that it was put in the back of the book because it tells you how much more real it is. It gives you real statistics and it tells you what real survivors are doing. Sometimes the world feels like a really dark place and that nothing will get better. But it's books like these that raise awareness and make it easier for people's voices to be heard. I would have never known about anything like this if I hadn't read this book. And I think sharing this book on the internet and telling my viewers about an experience like this does a little bit. I'm a small channel, of course. I can't move mountains, but I can make some people aware. And if I can just make one person aware and they share it, it's like a domino effect. It's why we need to work together to make the world a better place, not just with issues like this, but with all sorts of issues. We are a more connected world than we have ever been in all of history. The least we can do is raise awareness and help people out who are less fortunate than we are. I'm just gonna say it right now. I recommend this book to everyone. Obviously, because of the content, it can be triggering for some people, and if you don't feel like you'd be able to read it, then of course that makes sense, and prioritize your mental health. But if you are able to stomach it, if you're able to stomach these very real horrors that people have faced, I think it is a very good book to read. So I recommend it to everyone. I like being upbeat in my videos. I like being silly. I'm here to entertain people, but I also think that sometimes it is good to be serious. It's good to talk about real issues in our world and how we can combat that. I'm sure many of us want to see the world become a better place. And as the late Helen Keller said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. That will always be applicable. Well, this was a very serious video, but I hope you did enjoy it. This will be all from me for now. I don't know when this is coming out, but I hope you enjoy it when it does. I hope that it is slightly impactful in some way. But the least I can do is try. So yeah, without further ado, this has been Moo. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye. I don't remember what I was talking about.